Hey yo guys, what's up and welcome back to Toe Tags Metal Reviews, and today we're getting our final review for Jailbreak by Nervosa. So, Jailbreak. We listened to this album for an entire week, and I guess I'll just say, I thought this was a pretty solid album. Our first impressions of this album, at least mine, I don't want to speak for both of us, but I'm pretty sure we're both on the same page on the first impressions. We were both like, whoa, this is pretty damn good. Okay? But we ended up reviewing Code Orange that week, so this is like a week late. But anyways, thought this was a solid album. The goal for me this week, I always kind of set a goal, right? Like, what do I want my feelings to be at the end of the week?
Yeah.
My goal was, am I gonna feel the same about the album at the end of the week as I did the first time I heard it? The answer to that is not quite. Okay, I feel like this album slipped on me a bit. Where it slipped, that's hard to pinpoint. It's hard to really like narrow down exactly what kind of fell off, because I felt it was very strong when I first listened to it. So one of the biggest attractions to me for this album, and maybe this band in general, but specifically this album, is you can really hear the influence of the old school stuff, right? But it doesn't sound old school. It still sounds modern, still sounds fresh, still sounds contemporary.
We talked about that when we reacted to the title track as well. I think that song is very apparent in that one.
That song's probably one of the most apparent, where you get like the new wave of British heavy metal sound in there, which I think is where a lot of the influence comes from. When you're going with that older school kind of vibe that this has in a lot of the songs. Another song that has that, which was one of my top songs throughout most of the week, was Ungrateful, track number 3. Just really cool, old school Judas Priest type of influence. This song's got just really cool grooves. It went in my playlist right away. I love the guitar trills on it. I love just the overall pacing of the song, just the way it's sections and stuff like that. Really cool song, but it didn't remain my top song through the week, and I'll get to that in a minute. The song that actually kind of edged it out by the end of the week. But some other songs I'll talk about. Behind the Wall, I thought that was cool. I'm going to mention trill riffs again, because there's a lot of trill riffs on this album, and I thought the ones on this song were really cool during the bridge section. Really nice solo on this song. When the Truth is a Lie, featuring Gary Holt. I like how this one starts kind of with low energy, but then it builds up, right? It gives the album some more contour, and the placement of it being track number 9 out of 13, I thought was also really good, because you have song Seed of Death, track number 4, which also starts off kind of slow.
Yeah.
So you got these two songs that are placed very nicely that start off kind of slow, then build up the energy. That gives the album really nice waves of contour as far as your listening ears, and the Pleasurement goes for that. What else is there?
It's interesting you say that about When the Truth is a Lie, because I remember you weren't huge on that song when we first listened to it.
Okay, so let me reiterate. I'm not huge on the song. I just like
an aspect of it.
I just like the fact that it does a good job on the album of breaking up pace.
Okay.
So it does a really good job at that. As far as the song goes as a whole, I still think it's one of the weaker songs on the album, along with Superstition Failed, which is the other feature with Lena Scissorhands on that track. Those are, for me, the two weakest songs on the album, which I don't want to say it's because of the features. I don't think that's what it is. I think just overall there's songs that don't strike a chord with me.
And they just happen to be the ones.
They happen to be the ones that have the features on them. They're also back-to-back on the album, tracks 9 and 10. I don't think that really matters either. But yeah, I think just the track number 9 does a good job at just helping with the album contour. That's the biggest plus for that. Gates to the Fall is another song. That's track number 11 now. So these 3 songs in a row all kind of have something. Gates to the Fall is the most death metal sounding song on the album. It's the most brooding. It's got a deeper sound. It's just, and I like songs like that. I like songs that kind of just stand out. You got a song like, let's say you got a hand and everything sounds the same, but then you got this thumb. It's like this, sticks out like a sore thumb. That's the phrase, right?
Yeah.
Sore thumb, that usually means it's a bad thing, but in this case, it's not.
Like a good thumb on a sore hand.
The last track, the outro track, Nail the Coffin, I think is also a good song, a good outro track. And there's the She-Wolf riff, as I like to call it, is in this song. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just listen to She-Wolf by Megadeth and you'll probably hear it. But it's just this riff that it kind of haunts me. Like, I hear it in a lot of different things, so I call it the She-Wolf riff. And I don't even think that's where it originated. I'm pretty sure Dave Mustaine probably ripped it off from something else, and I just don't know where that came from. But anyways, on to this track that stole my heart through the week. Elements of Sin.
Oh,
Elements of
okay.
Sin, I think, has the catchiest chorus on the album, and I just love that you can hear the Portuguese accent in the chorus. I just love that. It's prominent there. The whole song as a whole is just badass, but the chorus just gets me, man. It just gets me going, gets me into it. It's just a well-written song. Decent placement on the album, second last track from the end, so it's like you're listening to the album, you know this juicy song's coming.
Yeah.
So it's like you wait for it, then you get this payoff. Overall, pretty good stuff. So the things that were bugging me, which I guess aren't really bugging me, is the songs that were kind of like duds. Like songs that kind of just came and went through the week. Endless Ambition, good song, but not much there. Suffocare, Sacrifice, Kill or Die, and then the two songs with the features, all those songs kind of just were there. They happened. You know what I mean? There wasn't really a lot that was gravitating me towards them. But all the other songs, fucking awesome. So it's like a really contrasty thing for me.
Almost like a half and half. Because
Almost
like
like a
that's
half
a
and half.
chunk of songs you listed that kind of were duds.
But still good songs though. Like it's not that they're bad, you know. And we say this kind of stuff a lot. It's hard to really put into words. Like I don't want to make it sound like, oh, those songs sucked and the rest were good.
It's just they were
Overall solid album, but there's half the songs that were like speaking to me, and half the songs that were just good to listen to, but not a lot happening.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Endless Ambition and Suffocare, and this brings me to talk about Ungrateful. I mentioned this when we first checked out the album, that it really started to heat up when Ungrateful came on. I still feel that way. I kind of wish that the album just started with Ungrateful.
Yeah.
Like, those first two tracks, not to say they don't need to just be there, but I just didn't really feel much from them. They kind of just came and went. And when Ungrateful starts with that wailing guitar, and that's like, yeah, okay, that's cool, that's really cool. And I like that. And that goes right into See to Death, Jailbreak. I really like the singles on this album. All three that we reacted to. See to Death, still a good song. Jailbreak might be my favorite on this album. It's just the riffs are so cool.
It's a fun song too.
It's a really fun song. I also like Elements of Sin. That's a really good one too. But another small thing I liked, and this is just a really small thing, in Nail the Coffin, which is the last track, you've got that dual guitar near the end, which is another hallmark of British new wave heavy metal.
Yeah.
And I liked that. When that came out, I'm like, yeah, this sounds pretty cool. But overall, I was kind of in a similar boat, that there is like a chunk of tracks that just kind of like come and go.
Yeah.
That don't really stand out. I also like When the Truth Is a Lie starts with like this percussive intro, which I thought was really cool. And I mentioned this in our first impressions of this album as well, where it kind of starts like that and then bam, hits you in the face.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like the guitar solo on that song as well. But a lot of this album I was kind of finding just being there. There wasn't really too much. Like, I was kind of struggling to write some notes about this album outside of like, well, the singles are really good and I like another song or two here and there. The other songs, like, I think what illustrates my point the best is just those first two tracks. Like, me wishing that the album just started with the third track.
Yeah.
Because the first two, there'd be times where I'd start the album, look over and be like, oh, I'm like a few tracks in, I didn't even notice, right?
Yeah.
I was kind of finding myself falling a little bit out of focus, but, you know, in a similar, like, to parrot what you said, these tracks aren't like bad. It's not like these songs suck by any means. It's just, it didn't really feel like there was much about some of the songs that really stood out.
They feel basically like run of the mill. Like even if you try to focus on them, you find yourself listening to it going, okay, I want to really take this track in and absorb it and write some notes about it. But the next thing you know,
it's over.
Two tracks have gone by and you're like, okay, I guess that didn't keep my attention very well.
Yeah, and then but the singles do.
Yeah.
You know, Ungrateful does, and the small bits of those other few songs that I mentioned do. So I was kind of struggling to really super get into this album, and it was you know, tough in that regard throughout the week. But I still do think it's a well put together album. Like I said, singles are strong. I'm wondering, like, if maybe you should, like, if this album maybe needs to be shuffled. Like, what if you just moved Ungrateful to the first track and kept Endless Ambition and Suffocare, like, right after that? I wonder if the experience would differ, because if you start with Ungrateful your attention is instantly grabbed that way,
Yeah.
and then you're more invested, as opposed to these other two songs kind of starting it, and you're just like, whatever, and then this crazy song comes on. I'm wondering if maybe that would have been a good idea. I don't know. That's just like some theory crafting.
Yeah, I mean, anything can happen, right? You rearrange the track list, it's gonna make the experience different. But I do think "Endless Ambition" is not a bad. It's like a good intro track. Like, it's pretty brutal the way it kicks off, and it kind of gives you this really, like, again, like this old school death metal-y feel. And I'm like, okay, this is mean sounding. This is really mean. But there's just nothing in the song that really, like, hooks. That really makes you go, okay, what makes this song worth listening to?
Yeah.
Right? Like Elements of Sin, I can listen to that song because I know the chorus is worth listening to. Even if there's not a lot of other things going on, it's just for that, it's worth it, right? And that's kind of the thing I look for in songs. A song could basically be mediocre, but if I know there's a sick drum lick that's gonna happen, you know, during the bridge or something like that, it's worth going in the playlist.
Yeah.
Right? Or if I know there's a sick, you know, scream or something like that, it's worth going in the playlist. Some of these songs just don't have that kind of stuff. At least nothing that really tickled my fancy. And I guess yours as well. So I do find it interesting that we could listen to an album and both kind of be like, whoa, this is a sick album. We should review this when we have a chance. And then both go through the week going, it wasn't really quite all that.
It was weird, and I was thinking about that throughout the week. I'm like, is there something wrong? Like, is there, wait, is this a me problem? Because I was super high on this, and then it's kind of slipping on me. I'm wondering, like, is it because I was listening to so much Code Orange last week?
Maybe.
That the contrast was so harsh, because they both sound very different from each other.
That's true.
So I didn't know. Like, I wasn't sure, you know? I was kind of confused. But the thing is, I feel like with the way that we review these albums, that kind of shows itself out, because yes, we did listen to so much of that last week, but we listened to a lot of this week. It's not like we just listened to it twice. Like, we listened to it throughout the entire week. So, and I thought to myself partway through the week, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna listen to this album enough to figure it out, because
I think it's fair chance.
Exactly. If I listen to this album enough throughout the week and it still feels that way, then that's just how it feels, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you listen to this album like 30 times throughout the week, or just whatever random number, you're really gonna see how you feel about it, even if you were listening to something vastly different the week before, because you're grinding this one now. So then you get to a point where, like, the effects of the other album are out of your system, and now you're invested in this. But it still kind of felt that way, and I was kind of feeling with this album as a whole almost that it kind of just comes and goes. I found a lot of listening sessions of this album where I put it on and it was kind of over, and I'm like, it's over? Like,
like, what just happened?
It just kind of like flew by, and I just kind of like, I felt like I missed something, you know? So I just kept putting it on, and I'm like, this keeps happening. What's going on?
Yeah. So as far as ratings go, I think I'll kick this off, and I'll just say, like, when we're reviewing albums, there's basically like three things that can happen. You do your first impression. It's either gonna grow on you, it's gonna sink on you, or it's gonna stay basically the same. Okay?
Yeah.
For me, this album sunk on me a bit. Okay? But that sunk from a pretty high place. It didn't sink too far. Just to preface, I think if there was a couple more songs in this album that were notable, and by notable I mean things that I could appreciate, things that are worth adding to the playlist, for example, it would get a much higher score from me. But since like half the album-ish is kind of just like strong but not notable, it's gonna get a 6.5 from me. So it started out at the beginning of the week as probably a toe tag album, and it dropped to a 6.5 because too many of the songs were just come and go songs. So it's unfortunate, but still a solid album, I would say.
Yeah, I was in a similar boat for this album, and I figured, you know, it kind of got to a point later on in the week where I was almost even getting bored. I was thinking, like, you know, okay, throw it on again. I'll feel the same way. The tracks that I like, I still like, but they don't feel like insane tracks where it's like, I need to hear that. It's like, oh yeah, these are cool songs. But overall, it's like, so I'm gonna give this album a 5.5. It kind of felt like it just wasn't hitting like it did when I first heard it. And you know, maybe by the end of the year, when we listen to all these albums all over again, I'll realize, okay, maybe this album is sick. But yeah, for this week, listening to it over and over, it kind of just came and went. And the songs that I did like were cool, but I didn't love them
Yeah.
as much as I wish I could.
Fair enough. Well, Nervosa is a sick band, and this is a solid album. It's got a 5.5 from TV Fish and a 6.5 from me. Those are our scores. Leave your thoughts down below and let us know what you guys would rate this album after, 2 weeks of listening to it now, because it came out 2 weeks ago. And yeah, subscribe if you guys are new to the channel. I'm Vile Self.
I'm TV Fish.
I'll see you guys on the next one. Keep those heads banging.